All right, we'll jump on in here in the interest of time. Again, thanks for coming to the Financial Peace class, and this is class number 3. Again, I'm Rich Farkas, my lovely wife, Deb Farkas, and Jacob Lefevre's with us. And I'm going to be kind of leading, but they'll be also sharing some thoughts along the way here. So we're hitting, well, let me recap first of all. So last 2 weeks that we were here, not the last 2 weeks, but the last 2 weeks that we were here, we talked about starting, out knowing there's a hope, that God really wants us to do well in this area, and He's not going to, prevent us from doing well when we commit it to Him and we do our best, and having a plan that we want to, and this is one of the things we were asking, to track your spending, but coming up with a plan. If you don't plan, would it fail to plan, then you plan to fail. So we have that, and obviously with our finances, there's a lot of elements to it, as we know, and we want to make sure that we have a plan. Talked about that, budgeting, having a good, understanding our cash flow, what's going in, what's coming out, and if what's coming out is more than what's coming in, that's not good. We want to tighten that up. We want to come up with $100 or $1,000 emergency fund, pay off debt, utilizing the debt snowball method. We talked about that, and then continue with some of the other things there. Today, we talked last time about saving and investing. Today we're going to hit 3 topics, and I think not all the topics will apply to everybody right now. Not all the topics will apply to everybody, but I think there's some good nuggets for just about everybody. And between the 3 especially, I think we'll have some good things to go over. So, first of all, we're going to talk about working. And probably just about everybody in here is working. I know maybe a couple of us are retired, but for those that are working, and even those who are not, I think this is good information to think about, maybe to share with others, or just, conceptually good scriptural aspects to working and how God looks at it, and some things we can help others with. And so one of the things that this will kind of hit me. So Genesis 2, verse 15. Genesis 2, verse 15. You don't need to turn there. I've got part of the scripture in quote. So this is the very beginning, Genesis chapter 2, right? And this is actually before the fall. This is before the snake tempts Eve and Adam, and they blow it. So, verse 15, it says, "The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to take care of it." I'll go on with the next verse. It says, "And the Lord God commanded the man, 'You are free to eat from any tree of the garden. You must not eat from the tree of good and evil, knowledge of good and evil,'" and so on. So, isn't this interesting? I don't think this had hit me before, that they were actually going to be working in the garden. So work's not all bad. I mean, this is Eden we're talking about. This is, work can be a good thing. Mm-hmm. And, I imagine that would have been very pleasant work, and very, nothing goes wrong. There's no, pests or rabbits eating, this or that, or that, everything was under control. Everything was heavenly because you're in Eden, right? But, as we know, the Adam and Eve blow it, and we're not going to go into that right today. But in verse 17, this is what the perspective of work is afterwards. Mm-hmm. So to Adam, verse 17, to Adam he said, "Because you listened to your wife and ate fruit from the tree about which I commanded you, you must not eat from it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat food from it all the days of your life." And then skipping down to verse 19, "By the sweat of your brow you will eat food until you return to the ground. Since from it you were taken, from dust you are, and to dust you will return." So we see that all of a sudden, the work that they would have been doing for eternity in Eden they're not, work's all of a sudden becoming hard and a necessity, and could be in a burden in this case. It's going to be rough, and you're going to be toiling, and it's going to be painful at times, and by the sweat of your brow you're going to eat. So just interesting that work in and of itself is not bad, but we're not promised in this fallen world that work's always going to be perfect. And I think just a perspective, I am retired, and maybe Mark has some thoughts on this, and Marion, but it's, I think we still can hope to do very good work. We'll look at some scriptures here, and not necessarily that work is a burden, but we're going to have bad days, is kind of the bottom line. That it's, we live in a more modern society, and there are some opportunities here to utilize our gifts and talents, and we'll look at some people in the Bible and how that kind of plays out for them. But we ought not always to think, and I think there's a little Hollywood image of, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. That can be true for some, but I have found it's not the norm. It's probably not the norm, to be honest. And I think if we can find something that we have a good skill set for, and that, hey, I'm pretty good at this, and most days, I'm helping people, and most days things are pretty good, and there's some, like any other job, there's some bad days, or I may have a bad boss, and maybe that boss will not be there forever, or if they are, we look for some other things to deal with that. But just kind of the perspective of work is, we're not promised Eden as far as work is concerned, but let's try to make the best of it. And I think God does. I think He does want to bless us when we commit it to Him. Any other thoughts, guys?
Find joy in whatever you do.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's difficult because we all have difficult people that we work with. But that's what the bathroom is, to go and pray.
Yeah.
That's an understatement.
Amen.
Yep, absolutely. And I could think of times where I overall liked my job, but there were really stressful deadlines, or there were things out of my control. I was in trouble, or maybe it was perceived that I was in trouble for things I didn't necessarily do, but it reflected on me. And they're just some. It can be tough. I've had bosses that were really, riding me, and then when there was somebody else that came into that role, all of a sudden that boss started on that next person, and that's kind of their initiation for those people. So work is work, and again we'll have we're going to talk about how to approach that here. I want to look. Go ahead, Jacob.
So I guess just like building off of the foundation of these other things with having a plan, tracking your spending, budgeting, emergency fund, paying off debt. I think it's important to recognize that when you do have these things under control, when you come into a position where you have this awful job and you just want to leave and you want to step out and you want to go, following this biblical way of managing your money can mean you can make that step now instead of having to wait 6 months to get out of that terrible position. I was in my last job, don't have a lot of good things to say about it, but I was able to make that step. I mean, she was 4 months old. Our daughter was 4 months old, but we were in a financially stable enough position that because we had followed these principles of paying off debt and all of these things and been very self-controlled, I was able to take that step. And I'm very grateful because I feel like God led me down that path. And then when I needed to take a step that was for me, I was like, this is really hurting me emotionally and mentally and so many other ways, because I feel like God helped me lay the foundation of that financial step. I was able to leave and walk away, and we were okay, but I got out from a terrible situation and got into a better situation, and it's because of these principles. So it's just building off of the foundation of the things that you're talking about. I think God can set us free from situations like that too, if we follow the principles that he sets for us biblically.
I think that's a great point. I appreciate that sharing, because like Jacob's saying, if we have our finances under control, we have more freedom, whereas in more flexibility, more choices, and to be able to make a move to a happier situation. And sometimes God just works it out. I could share about I got basically fired from a job, a sales job, but landed in a much better situation where what I had learned in that job translated to the new job, and they couldn't hire me quick enough. And it ended up being, really 17 years later, that's where I retired from. That group, we did move investment firms a couple of times, but it was way better fit. And the new sales manager there at my old job he had it out for me. He was cleaning the house, kind of the turnaround situation, not all towards me, but our team was pretty bad, as a whole. And anyway, God blesses that. So 1 Corinthians 29, this is just a concept that's kind of cool to think about, how God really is in control of all this stuff. 1 Corinthians 29, verse 11, yours, Lord, is the greatness and the power, and the glory and the majesty and the splendor. For everything in heaven and earth is yours. Everything is yours. Yours, Lord, is the kingdom. You are exalted as head over all. Wealth and honor come from you. You are the ruler of all things. In your hands are strength and power to exalt and give strength to all. So the point here is that God owns everything. Everything in heaven and earth is yours, including your job and your job situation. God owns that, and He knows your situation. And that's encouraging to me when maybe times were tough or we were real busy and we had a bunch of deadlines or whatever. God knows that, and then there are some better times too. Again, hopefully with your job. Let's look over in Exodus 35, and we'll start to wrap this up. There's some great scriptures with regards to employment, but I tried to take some highlighted ones, and I listed those down at the bottom of that section, other scriptures to consider. So Exodus 35, one of the things, we talked about, or I mentioned that, the Hollywood view of, you're going to find this job, that, you do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life type of thing. Well, I don't think that's always the case, but at the same time, I think God, has blessed each one of us. We've been fearfully and wonderfully made. He knows our strengths. He knows our weaknesses. Some of us have the gift of gab and can sell, like crazy. Others are more analytical, but can be very reliable, those types of things. God knows our personalities. So starting in verse 30, which I'll read here, it says, Then Moses said to the Israelites, See, the Lord has chosen Bezalel, son of Uri, the son of Hur, in the tribe of Judah. And he has filled him with the Spirit of God, with wisdom, with understanding, with knowledge, and with all kinds of skills, to make artistic designs for work in gold, silver, and bronze, to cut and set stones, to work in wood, and to engage in all kinds of artistic crafts. And he has given both him and Aholiab, son of Ishimelech, of the tribe of Dan, the ability to teach others. He has filled them with skill to do all kinds of work, as engravers, designers, embroiderers, in blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, fine linen, and weavers, all of them skilled workers and designers. So we see a lot of different skill sets here. So God does, bless us, and I think everybody, that it's kind of a new thing in the corporate world to do skill assessments and strength assessments and a lot of that kind of stuff. It's probably even more so now. And becoming more prevalent, but the idea is to identify, maybe there's a little different role in my company that I'd be even better at, and work with your boss, hey, I'd kind of like to go over into, this department because, I like to do this, as you know, or I'm good at this. I'm good at, this types of analysis or this type of interaction with clients or marketing or whatever the case may be. Again, or maybe, these physical artisans, construction, or, there are sometimes some ways to think outside the box. And as Jacob mentioned, maybe, not maybe, indeed, if we have a good handle on our finances to begin with, may give us more flexibility to explore some things or do something part-time, or maybe, hey, I'm going to do this as a side hustle and see if it's something that I could build into a business. But I'm going to, I just want to explore. And I think this is kind of where we want to get a lot of advice and get input from people. I think, rash decision of just quitting a job that's got great benefits and the great 401k and the great health insurance, and then just going out and doing something self-employed where you haven't really gotten your feet wet there yet. You don't want to do that. Get a lot of advice. And we see people in the Bible, we would definitely want to work to honor God and reflect excellence, especially when we're representing God. Colossians 3:23 refers to that. We could think of characters like Joseph, Daniel. Think of them in their situations where they're in captivity, basically, Joseph in Egypt, and then Daniel in Babylon. But they were known, their excellence. God had blessed them. And I think supernaturally, in that case, those cases. But, when you commit to Him, I think God can help you to excel or find that little pathway to excel in. And again, get advice. I think, having our finances in place, but there's nothing wrong with elevating ourselves. And I know that job I ended up with, I was making a lot more, especially towards the end. I was making a lot more than what I had been in the job where the boss was out to get me. And, so it ended up, I really feel blessed by that, but I was really trying to do the right thing all along. Yeah, Mark.
I was going to add, if you're in a job and you get some opportunities to do some other projects or side things that you can try, that gives you an opportunity to try something new that you're not specifically doing, make yourself more marketable, do different areas that you can grow your marketability in that career or that position so that you're able to do a number of things in that area. That's real important. Try new things, try different things. You may be volunteering for it. You may not get any money for it, but it gives you the opportunity to try it and see if you like it. Whether it's marketing, sales, you name it. If it's working in the restaurant and trying different cooking and doing other areas, looking at the finances, whatever you can, do those other areas and try them out. Yeah. And it's showing yourself to be marketable and a go-getter too. So keep that in mind when you're talking with your employer.
I think that's excellent.
I have a question. Who here has like a dream job that they would love to do that they've never tried or pursued? Yeah, right? Okay, me too. So that I think is like kind of what Rich is getting at. Again, looking at these foundations of managing your money well and setting yourself up into a place where you could potentially take a step in that direction, it really follows this. Because so I got laid off from my first job, and then I was actually somehow, even though I hadn't been working for very long, but I had gotten myself financially figured out enough that I moved back with my parents, and then I did music full time for almost a year, and that was amazing. And I learned that I did not want to be a solo entrepreneur. I do not like this. If I do this again, I would want somebody else to do all this stuff, and I would just want to sing. But that's not how it works. Yeah. So, and I learned that because I was in a position where I had the chance to do it. And so, just coming back on those foundational things, I think if you're not in that position, or if you do have more things that you need to figure out, or responsibilities, or children, or family, or whatever, I think the question becomes, what would be the baby step to like get in that direction? Because I don't think God wants us to be miserable in our work, like the scripture's talking about. I don't think that gosh, what was his name? The Uri, son of Hur, was miserable as he was doing artistic designs for work in gold, silver, and bronze. Like, he probably was really into that. And like, I think that's what God wants for us. We're obviously not always going to be happy in our jobs. I mean, I love my job right now, but I did not love my job today. And but I wouldn't leave my job because I really love what I do, but I had to find it, and I had to take baby steps into it. And I was able to do that because God guided me to a place where I could set a foundation for myself to take risks that I couldn't in other situations.
Great input.
I have a question for Jacob. Do you feel like that taught you something and now you apply it to your job during that time? You use it full time?
Yeah, definitely.
About learning about yourself, or like, yeah.
I think the biggest thing that I learned was just like personal motivation. Because I think I learned that if I want to do something, especially as a solo entrepreneur, nobody's going to do it for me. I had to do it. And so I just got a lot of personal motivation in that way that I have taken into my regular job. And now I'm a project manager because I do things, I get them done. And I became a doer, I guess. And that just became my MO. And that was something that I learned at that time. And I learned that if I want to succeed personally, I have to succeed personally. And so I think I just became a doer, and that's really helped me. And I don't think I would have learned that if I hadn't gone out on a limb where I wasn't gonna eat or make any money unless I went out and took it. And
Yep.
Good question.
Good stuff. All right. Well, we're going to shift gears here, and again, we're compressed on the time a little bit, so these could be some good things to discuss amongst each other later and with other folks. In your situation, it's a big area. I mean, a job is a big part of your life. You're spending more time at work than you are probably around your family in an average week. So I know it's a big deal, and God wants to bless it with not always easy, but I think He does want you to prosper in the long run with lessons we learn and getting our putting these steps into practice. So we're going to shift to generosity, and generosity is something, again, we're more freed up, again, tying in with if we're following these steps and getting our finances, we could be in a position to do more, give more, and be more of a blessing, in our world, just our community, our church, the poor, a lot of different areas. And generosity really does involve, I think it is more than money. Now money, we're going to talk about primarily, and that's what the class is about, but it also includes giving your time, your talents. Sometimes it's forgiveness, patience, love, kindness, and faithfulness. So there's a lot of different ways we can be generous. We're going to focus primarily on the financial piece today, but again, it's a good thing, and we might not be in the financial position. We're working on getting there, but we can still be generous in some other ways, and then in time, hopefully, be even more generous financially. So we're talking about including in other ways we might be financially generous with people, our local church, and caring for people in need. So just referencing Numbers 18, talks about the tithes, and that God had set it up in His plan in the Torah that the Israelites would give a tithe, give a tenth. Now this again, we're not under the old covenant, but it is, I still think it's kind of a good principle as something to shoot for. I know I had, when I was a baby Christian, I had, I don't know if you guys know, Mike Hayes, who's in our fellowship, but I was roommates with his brother, his older brother, Pete Hayes. So I'm this brand new Christian. And I didn't really think too much about giving, before I got baptized. And Pete, was telling me, okay, Rich, you're going to give 10% to God and give 10% to savings. And he used stock mutual funds. And then he says, then you got 80% for your bills. And try to get to that point. And I'm like, wow, that's brilliant. And this was real basic. I mean, I'm not, but those, for back then, I was a single, pro, guy, and I worked at a bank, and, okay, I can do that. It made a lot of sense. And I even remember giving, and I hadn't really budgeted for that, but it just seemed like with me being a Christian, I ended up with more money. My take home seemed to be more. My accounts grew more. Just, I don't know why, but they did, and I think God knows why, because he was blessing it. But anyway, the concept of the tithe is one that we definitely see in the Old Testament, and I know my personal conviction is trying to get to that. If you're not able to quite do that, I use that as a benchmark rather than, an Old Testament, where God really commanded a tithe. And then I think we're also under a better covenant today, maybe. Eventually, the idea of doing even more than a tithe if you can.
Yes.
Working to that goal, again, with financial, having a good financial situation by following the steps, you can get to that point. So that's just my personal conviction. And then 1 Corinthians 29, and we're not going to spend too much time here, but this is when David was kind of rallying the troops, and, you might remember this. They were getting ready to build the temple. Now, David wasn't going to build the temple. It was going to be his son Solomon that was going to build it. But David's attitude was so good. And the people, they were starting to collect gold and silver and all these materials and everything. And David said, but who am I and who are my people that we should be able to give as generously as this? He had a humble attitude about giving, like, this is the God of the universe, and we're going to try to build this temple. And, he was just blown away by the idea of having the opportunity to be generous. Having the opportunity to be generous. And that, we're going to flip the page over. And likewise, in the Corinthians, Paul talking to the Corinthians about how we should approach giving in our hearts. In 2 Corinthians 9:7, each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. Cheerful giver. And the Greek word is hilaros, which is also the root word for hilarious. Like, hilarious. Think about that. Oh, hilarious. Almost laughing like you're giving. I mean, I don't think it's that way, but it's more gleeful inside. Like, the opportunity to give, I feel good when I'm giving. Okay? And so this would be more on the money side. And then we know Matthew 25. I just put the little bit of the reference, a part of the verse. For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. And you remember, like, well, Lord, when did we feed you, or when did we see you? What you did for the least of these, you did for me. And we remember that. So it's not just money, but having that generous spirit, and that's what Jesus really wants us to have. And then Galatians 2:10, specifically about the poor, says all they asked was that we should remember the poor, the very thing I had been eager to do all along. So before they even asked, he was already eager to do it. So that, having that attitude, and that I think we're blessed in this church to have. There's many great causes, many ways to serve the poor and the needy, but I think our food pantry is just outstanding. We are on the radar with the mayor's office in Indianapolis. We're invited, with some of the big wigs in the food pantry arena, if you will. So we're on that team. So it just continues to get better and better, and I know Peter and Karen and their guidance enhance it all the way along. But we have other opportunities. We give to Hope Worldwide, of course. We have some limited local benevolence where we can help people out with short-term needs. We have the Care Portal also, which is also, we've won awards for that, our Care Portal team. So there's some great things we can get involved with, not exclusively those things, but as we consider ways that we could be more generous, think about that. You were going to say something?
Yeah, I think, I know, especially when I'm doing my budget, sometimes the only time that I see the tithe that I give is on the way out. And I'm like,
Yes.
oh my God, what I could do with that money. But I think it's important to try and connect with where that is going. Because if you just see it as like, oh my God, here you go, I'm never going to see that again, then it's a lot harder to be a cheerful giver than if you think about this time the money that I donated fed this family. That feels a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
God used my financial responsibility and the good choices that He guided me to make to feed someone. That feels different, I think, than just like, we got my money to the church. It's like, yeah, God is using me in the world through my work.
Mm-hmm.
In that lens, that feels a little bit different. And I think it is 100% true. And also it is all the more reason to be responsible with the things that God has given to us so that we can do something that is meaningful and impactful for people. If we don't do that and, I don't know, have a credit card balance or something, and I'm paying that money to the bank instead of the food bank. Like that. In that lens, I think it makes giving a lot more meaningful. And then also, my wife and I, something that we've done, the generosity is like our favorite piece of this, because what we've done is we have like a little fund, and it's little. But we'll put like $20 every paycheck or something into something that we call the giving fund, and then we just have it there. And then when somebody's in the line at Aldi and they are a little bit over and they're paying in cash and they got to put it back, it's like, no, you know what? I got it. I'll take the balance for that. And then it comes out of the giving fund, and it's never like that money was set aside to help. That money was set aside to bless someone. And we only get to do that because we've made choices that allow us to do that. And that is, that's on top of our tithe, but it's so meaningful to us. And I think it's fun. Like in that way, it's like really fun to go to a restaurant and see a college kid who's working as a waiter and just leave a huge tip. And pay for their books or pay for whatever they're trying to do in life. That is cool. And that is fruit of following the biblical principles of managing your money. And that's me and Danielle's absolute favorite thing about the generosity portion of this, is connecting with the money that we are tithing on, and then also just giving because we can, because why not? We're not gonna use that money on something that's really meaningful for ourselves, Starbucks or whatever. Or we're not really denying ourselves to be able to give to someone. We set that money aside for that specific person, and we want to bless people, and that's a way that we can because of the principles that God has guided us in our money.
That's great. And it is cool how all these things do tie in with, again, when it's the motivation, I think, to have our situation be the best it can be and ever improving, where we can do more of these kinds of things, more flexibility in work, more flexibility in being able to be generous. Appreciate that, Jacob. Yeah.
It just reminded me of a quote that I've seen recently that says that we come with nothing, and we leave with nothing.
Yeah.
But make sure what our souls gain from it.
Yeah.
Like our souls are gaining that dependence and that trust in God because we're giving away something and we're gaining that. So
That's
I
great.
think we're reminding ourselves of that.
Good stuff.
And you're creating great memories.
Oh,
'Cause,
yeah.
you can say, remember last year when we, and that's encouraging when you're having that bad day. know?
Yeah, and I think too, like we've done it for things that are meaningful to us personally. So like we'll give there's like a group in our neighborhood that that just has like a food bank that runs, and it's like this little box. And occasionally we'll just give some money. We're like, we're gonna fill it up this time because this is our neighborhood, and these are our people, and this is our community, and we want to be here to serve. And it's meaningful. It's memories. It's just it fills you up.
Better than being stingy.
Oh yeah. That is one meaningful way that money can bring some heart, fill up your heart.
Good stuff. Well, another topic that we could have spent the whole class on. I don't want to cut it short. We got some additional scriptures here, and there's a lot more in the Bible on this whole topic. And definitely that was a big focus of Jesus. I mean, he was always giving to the people who were marginalized or were needy. He himself was essentially homeless, really. I mean, didn't have a home. He was about meeting the needs of people. So some great things to think about. The next thing, we're just going to kind of go through this, some neat little tips. I know probably in surveying the class, so we don't have a ton of people maybe still in this situation. We have some with kids and paying it forward. We have some who will be. So this is talking about teaching the next generation and getting them prepared, and maybe even to avoid some of the mistakes we made financially, or helping them just to have a good handle on things. Some of these scriptures here, teaching the next generation, are just kind of the general, when we're admonished to train kids and bring up our kids the right way. Deuteronomy, impress them on your children. These commandments, these instructions. We know that. Proverbs 22, start children off in the way they should go. In the end, they will not depart from it. So giving them a good start, giving them some good training. We're going to get into some specifics here. And then, of course, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. So finances is one piece, obviously. But, it is an important piece. And looking back on it, both of our sons are in their 30s. And they're both good savers. And I look back on it, we could have done more. I could have been a little more intentional. I know Deb and I talked about that. But we had a piggy bank, or a bank with, this is, money for God. This is money for, spending. And then this is money for long-term savings. Like we had 3 sections of it. So these are just some ideas here. Now, the practical ideas by age group, this was really more from Crown. I borrowed it from Crown Financial Ministries, that they say, the little kids coming up to toddler, kind of you start teaching some deferred gratification. I want that cookie. I want that, animal cracker. We're doing that, later. We'll get that. You can't get that till you eat your broccoli. Or some, so very basic level here, right? But deferred gratification, we have to have that discipline, right? We have to have that if we're going to do the financial plan, if we're going to have our finances, following the steps. So that's something. And then later, so age 3 to 5, where you're getting up, kindergarten age, this is the responsibility, and maybe this is starting to use that piggy bank or some options along with that. They suggest, the 10% tithe, longer term savings, and then 40% is spending. So very similar to what we had, and again, kind of a nice little breakout where when they get some money, you can spend part of it, and but you'll be glad if you saved some. And of course, we want to prioritize giving some to God, teaching that early. So age, going from that age group up to 8, simple chores. Maybe start teaching them, hey, you're going to help empty the dishwasher. Ask, what are some things around the house they can be doing that are age appropriate. Limited yard work, maybe at 8. I don't remember mowing the grass with a mower at 8. Maybe I did. But at 6 you were doing it?
Do the stick, pick it up stick.
Oh yeah, pick up sticks. That's a good one. Or maybe And again, their attention span's not quite there, but again, I get the concept here that's they can start learning more, contributing to the family, and learning that responsibility. And then you start getting to the age group. You're coming into the preteens, and we want to. This was an idea. We didn't do this, I don't think. We gave an allowance, and Dave Ramsey's going to talk in the other tips here about actually have they're earning rather than just an allowance. Let's get a set allowance if you do nothing. We did that, and then it came over to the phone. Okay, we're going to cover your phone. So I think some of those things I would rethink today. It was back then, and but I like that idea of saving with a match, because hey, if you put in $1, Dad's going to put in 50 cents. Something like that. You're teaching them about systematic saving. That's something real similar that they would get with a 401k, possibly. Those types of things. Getting them, hey, there's an incentive. Not only you're going to see some growth in your money right away, they're going to be motivated, and they're learning some concepts there. I'm going to zip through this a little faster. You can starting getting some shopping and having discussions about value. Like, you want this shirt, it's a designer shirt, you could get 3 shirts over here, or you could have more money for camp by not getting that. Let's get this shirt and have money for camp. So some of those concepts of, like, yeah, we could go to Hawaii, but then there's a bunch of other stuff that we can't do on a trip. So things like that, those types of discussions. Even teaching them habits of maybe, hey, we're going to go to Aldi's where we get, we do some shopping and get better deals on this certain kind of food. We may go to, Goodwill to look for, get you some stuff for summer. We're going to save money that you'll have more money for something else if we do that. Thrift stores, or looking for sales, things like that. Don't pay the full price. And definitely don't put it on a credit card, but don't pay the full price. And then you start getting into the teenage years, transitioning more into employment. Starting to teach, like, hey, you're going to go in. Mom and Dad aren't going to be there. You're going to have to talk to this person that's going to be interviewing for the job at McDonald's or, whatever it is. And you're going to be filling out an application, and you're going to need to know your social security number and all these different things. Good skills that are going to really pay off by the time they get to college. They're comfortable doing that kind of stuff. Talking, conversational skills. You're going to talk to adults. You're going to look that adult in the eyes. Don't look down. Look them in the eye. Smile. Show interest. Things like that. Time management.
That's good.
They're going to learn. When they're in their high school years. We're all still working on that probably. But think about maybe if you were in an after-school activity like band or sports or something like that, and maybe having a part-time job too, and managing that, keeping your grades, church, all that kind of stuff. You're having to manage all that. And then also some basic banking. Set up like a kid checking account at a bank or a credit union. A lot of times those will have transparency with the parents, where you can see what's going on, but you're encouraging them, teaching them those skills. There are some people that don't know how to use a checking account, and they're adults, and that's not good. So there's a lot of good financial education articles, and I know I worked at Schwab for a while, but a lot of these there's just there's stuff. A lot of these financial places now, like Fidelity and others. There's all kinds of stuff on the internet in this area. You just have to do a little digging. It's not the top priority because kids don't have a ton of money to invest quite right now. So, but a lot of these firms have learned that, hey, we do want to provide stuff the parents want, some things to teach their kids. Okay, the Dave Ramsey tips. You guys have anything to add to that before we do the
question?
Yes.
For the responsibility for the 10% tithe, 50% saving, 40% spend, what do they save for? Is that something that they save and then they spend, or they just save to
More a longer term goal, like maybe something like a bike or something like that.
Okay.
Well, 3 to 5, that concept might not, yeah.
Save your crackers.
Yeah. It does seem not quite as
Really
age
big
appropriate.
snack.
It's not quite as age appropriate, but I could see,
Your 401k.
you're still teaching them, like, hey, this will be for down the road, maybe we're going to do a vacation, and, vacation's in, next summer, and you wanted to buy some things, we went to the beach or whatever. You get creative with the kid.
Yeah.
So,
It's all delayed gratification.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's the big one, the delayed gratification. Okay, Dave Ramsey. And again, disclaiming, Dave Ramsey stuff is copyrighted, but I just went on the internet and looked up Dave Ramsey tips, and this was tips for kids, so it was right there on the internet, so I didn't have to pay for it. So, and I've talked about Dave Ramsey very positively, as do Jacob and Danielle and Deb, so. But he suggests using a clear jar for savings rather than like a piggy bank where they can't see what's inside, because they can see, the money adding up, and they can see it's money. So they can see bills, they can see coins. I kind of like that. I think you could still do the 3-section with that somehow. The next thing he talks about is us modeling good financial habits ourselves. So what if kids they pick up on things. So they see, well, Dad goes out and buys this extravagant thing, this new set of golf clubs, and we got a bunch of credit cards. They pick up on that. Or something like, Mom and Dad are always kind of fighting about money. Seems like they're, stuff like that. They're going to pick up on that. So we want to, again, this ties in with the whole concept of following the steps, making improvements, and having finance be a joy, and having a lot of choices. They're going to pick up on that too. Okay, explaining that purchases have real costs. This is again the idea that you want that ice cream cone. Well, then you're not going to have money for tomorrow when we go do such and such. So this costs this amount, or maybe they have 50 cents, so they don't realize, no, that costs $2. You don't have that yet. Some of those real basic kinds of things, purchases have real cost. Mommy and Daddy are not, just taking care of everything for you. And opportunity cost. Opportunity cost, we do this, but then we can't do this. Or maybe we do this other choice and we can do this and this by, different opportunity costs. And let's be thrifty here. You have some more choices down the road. And those types of things. Okay. The commissions, not allowances. Dave suggests that, you mow the lawn, then you get the money. You don't just get a set allowance. We did the set allowance, and our kids did help and do pretty good with that. But I think I would change that thought process a little bit from what we did. Okay.
How so would you change?
How so? More the idea that if you do, it's a tough one because we eventually switched the allowance over to the phone, so they had their own phones. So they were getting we were giving them set money regardless of whether they did any work around the house or not. And trying to think through, every situation is different, but more like, hey, if you mow the grass, this is going to be taken care of, rather than just, hey, you get your allowances $15 a week no matter what you do.
You don't do anything.
Yeah, if they don't do anything.
If you don't do anything.
Yeah. So he refers to it as commissions, and in the explanation he was saying that really more that they earn the money rather than just get a set allowance, which kind of might build a sense of entitlement, like, I get that allowance. I get that allowance no matter what. So
An action.
yeah.
An action tied to money.
So they're
Yeah.
talking like guys. As a woman, I say, as part of this family, we all participate to make everything work in the family. So I would move that age group as far as the chores down to 2 and 3 years old. If mom is doing laundry, then they're helping me with the laundry. It may not be help, but they're doing something, you know?
Yeah.
We all participate because we are a family. We all sit down to eat dinner together. Why don't we do this together?
And
Allowance is such a foreign concept to me. Like
Yes.
growing up, it's just like you live here, you eat here, you have to do this.
yeah,
Right. That's how I get.
yeah,
So when I come here, like, oh, allowance to do chores, I'm like, oh, you live here. You're gonna do what you have to do.
Yeah.
It's a part of this.
and I think, the old concept of allowance, I can remember even being a kid myself, I got an allowance, and I think it was the idea of starting to get kids engaged with money. But I think if there's not thought given to it, I'm not sure. It's better than nothing, but what Dave's saying is that have them thinking it through a little bit and valuing the money more because they earned it. They understand it's they're getting paid something for something they've earned. They did some contribution.
That is interesting because, I mean, I think about, because when I was growing up, it was if you did your chores, then you got your allowance.
Yeah.
But I think it shifted to you had I like that because it's like you have to do the dishes, you have to do the laundry, you have to do all that stuff because you're here. And you are making this mess with all of us. So we're all participating in taking care of all this together because we're a family. But then
Washing dishes.
it was like if you mowed the lawn, like there were 4 of us, and whoever mowed the lawn got the money. The other people didn't get the money.
There you go.
So it's like a hybrid. So it's like you got to do the dishes, but then if you find the job and then you do the work and other people didn't do the work, then it's interesting. I don't know.
That's a good
Yeah.
analogy.
It's like a hybrid because
Yeah.
I don't get paid to do dishes. So I
Yeah.
still got to do the dishes.
You don't get a commission from.
No, I
Yeah,
don't. Nobody gives me
okay.
a commission,
No,
and that is a
my
good.
mom was strictly, so you get a roof overhead, food on your
Yeah,
table.
yeah.
There's your allowance.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So all this is really nuanced,
It's
but
true.
it's the idea is just some things to teach kids, and I think it can be thinking it through. And again, we now as our kids are grown, what could I have done better? Oh, this was an area I didn't do quite as well. And I don't want to throw them under the bus. They did some work. They did some work around, and they were busy. But
The other thing is, with
Could have done better.
children, and now that my children are in their late 30s, I find out that they didn't really understand the concept of why we were saving. We never took the time to explain.
Boy,
We just
I like
did it
that.
in fashion. You're doing it because we gotta do this.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, well, we have this much money. How would you suggest that we spend it?
I like that. Yeah, having more discussion rather than, hey, we're kind of doing these things. The kids are getting exposed to money, but we want these concepts of, hey, having a bank account. I'm just, okay, we're going to sign you up for a bank account. Okay, you're on your own. No, talk about it, communicate, explain why we do these things and why it's important, why it's useful. Emphasizing, impulse buying, explaining that. There'll probably be more than one situation that might come up where everybody's got this new, the new shoe, the new Adidas shoe. And, that shoe's $200, so could we, number one, there's some goals, some lessons to maybe get up to that $200 if that is absolutely what they want. But what are some other opportunity costs? Hey, maybe get these Nike shoes that are on sale, last year's model, but they're probably just as good. And then you've got another $100 remaining for other things. So, just this kind of stuff. Encouraging saving for college, having those discussions, talking about that. They're not going to probably be able to save on a real high level, but maybe they do. Maybe they start a business of some sort. I remember a kid that had lawn mowing business, and he hired a bunch of other kids, and he had 20 lawns, and he was raking it in. So it's possible to do that. That may be an idea. I might do that in my retirement. No. But anyway, these kinds of things. Trying to, we talked about student loans. That's really tough. Yeah, these are more in-depth discussions, but we want to certainly have that on the radar and warning against having student loans. I don't want to say it's, be cautious to, I just know a lot of people, have become captives to their student loans. So we'll put it there. Warn against student loans. Have those discussions before we start looking at, the different schools and what some of the options are. Credit cards, same thing. Debit card, give the teaching the concept of a debit card, which can be used as a credit card, but it's drawing off the savings or the checking that they saved and put the money in there. Simple budgeting, just understanding, hey, you're mowing lawns, or what your part-time job at McDonald's, you're getting this amount of money every week. You want to spend less than that every week and build up the savings rather than spending more than that. You're trying to get more hours at McDonald's because you're in debt. Little basic concepts on the compound growth we talked about last class 3 weeks ago, where the snowball effect of you're getting interest on the interest on the interest on the interest, and if you keep adding to it, it's growing even bigger and getting to be a bigger snowball. Different than the debt snowball, but it's the same concept of interest on the interest over many years. Again, Albert Einstein said it was the eighth wonder of the world. Yeah, just teaching them how to earn money, etc. So a lot of these are tied in very similar, but some things to think about. We'll start wrapping it up with that. Anybody else have anything to add?
I'll speak to the student loans piece. I had a lot of student loans. That's what ended up getting me into this, was I realized how much I was paying on my student loans. And I just got really serious about it, and it took me a few years to dig out from under it, but I did it, and it's worth it. It's really hard. You have to buckle down, but I wouldn't be doing the things that I'm doing now with my money if I hadn't done that and sacrificed. And I did all the stuff, roommates, extra job, did everything to just kind of buckle down for a couple years and get rid of it. And it's the same principle for credit cards. It's a temporary sacrifice to get to a better place, and it's worth it. It's so hard, but it's so worth it too, because we're able to do things now that we just wouldn't have been able to do that. And I'm very grateful to my past self for having buckled down and taken that bullet, because now I'm free from that.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Well, next week we're going to do some wrap up, and we will have I'd like to have time, part of the class where you can just ask kind of general questions, and we may not know all the answers to them, but some topics like insurance and things like that real estate. Again, general, but some things that on the financial topic. But we'll do some wrap up. I'm going to share Mike Foley's tips that he had for anybody. I'll get some of those printed up. He's got some nuggets, so stuff like that. So we'll wrap it up, and again, some Q&A maybe at the end. I'd like to allow for some time for that. All right.
Anybody have questions on what we talked about tonight? Or you can come ask us by yourself.
Yeah, or say next week we can cover. If there's anything, again, we wanted to kind of wrap this up. Obviously, as we have talked about, this isn't like the Dave Ramsey course. We're giving some nuggets here, some good stuff that we've borrowed very heavily, but we're very compressed, with just the 4 weeks, 45 minutes or so. Yeah.
5 questions. I
Yes.
know Dave Ramsey is more like anti-credit card, anti-credit in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that? Because I know for me, I've seen where credit hacking has saved me a lot of money for things like travel and all that, if you know to do it well.
You're talking about points.
Building the points.
Getting points, and that has saved me so much. Well, it
I want
depends.
the cash.
But a lot of it you can redeem for cash.
Yeah,
Are you paying interest on your credit card at any point?
I do not spend money I do not have, so I clear off
Good girl.
every.
yeah,
That's rule number one for me.
yeah, that's the answer.
Self-control thing.
So knowing, having gotten yourself in a situation where I can pay that credit card off, and I do the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
It's a
yeah,
slippery
I can do it, but, and I know that if I ever got into, I still have savings that I could pay that off with. I don't pay interest at all on that, but a lot of people that are in, where they have credit card bills, where they have multiple bills, student loans, that's the part that we're talking about the steps to get out of that and get into a better position where maybe that's an option for somebody with the self-control, the discipline, and the resource. It's a possibility.
Here's the other thing. If you're spending cash for that meal or that coffee or whatever that is, you see that money going out, and the credit card is a lot easier. It's just a slide or a tap and you're done, and you don't really realize what's going out the door. The Dave Ramsey assessment is that you're seeing what you're buying. And that's why they do the envelope system where you take the money and you spend so much on food.
Yeah.
You have budgeted for food, and budgeted for this or that, and you're seeing that money go out. Then you can make those choices about where that money is going.
Yeah, it's a greater frugality type of thing. But you're asking specifically about, if you go to bank rates online, and you can look up all the charge cards, they'll tell you the ones that have the best rate to give you returns. And you can choose which one you want and how much you're gonna pay to have that card. We don't pay for our cards, but we get money back. And we put money in CDs when they're available for 5%, 4%.
For me, it's a balance between, I don't like banks. I just feel like so many times in my life, I've just been completely steamrolled by a bank. And it's predatory. It's a hook. Like, there's so many people who get dragged under because they want those credit card points, and it's a tactic of the bank to ensnare people who do not have the self-control to do it.
Yep.
Oh, rewards.
Yeah, rewards points. And I just don't like that. I'm like, no, I'm not participating. That's just me. That's what I've decided.
But that's knowing your personality.
Yeah, that's my choice.
And
And that's why for me it's more of a moral thing. It's like I just see them taking advantage of people, and I'm not going to participate.
Yep.
But
And that's why I like participating. I'm like, okay, I'm going to show you.
because you get your money, I get
Yeah.
that. You're like, you thought you were going to get me, and I got it.
Well,
Yeah,
that's like
just
the-
me. That's just me. But
I know, like going to Lowe's, I would go to Lowe's and they'd say, well, if you put it on the Lowe's credit card, it's 10% off, and it's a 0%, but you've got like so many months before you have to pay it off, and that's the point where they get sucked in. And I'm always, I'll take that discount, but I know I have the savings to pay cash for it. So that's why I'm in a position to do it, and I make reminders to make sure, because it'll jump up to 24.99% if I fail that deadline. That's what Jacob's point is. So we got to be really careful, and for purposes of the class, I support Dave Ramsey's approach, to stay clear of credit cards. But I don't want to be a hypocrite. I mean, I do use points myself.
That's not how you learned initially.
Yeah.
Did you learn by the cash system? I learned from the envelope system. I mean, for years, I had ones in my envelope, and that was for food.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
I've employed that before myself
Yeah.
in the past, so, anyway, I'm gonna turn off the recorder. Anybody else? And again, we'll hit a lot of questions next week, but thank you, great participation this time.